There you have it on your screens, the 0.5% cybercrime levy that everybody has been talking about. Everyone. In fact, we're hearing one levy too much, you know. It's almost as though you're trying to crush the Nigerian, you know. And then we had people talk about how this is contrary to our cashless policy drive, because many people will basically just decide not to use banks anymore because the levies have become too much for the Nigerian. Well, there are different perspectives. Many people have spoken up since this was done. And we have someone else in the studio today who's going to be continuing the conversation. He's a political economist. We have Mr. Dakole Ijogi in the studio here with us this morning to talk about this levy and what it's doing to our economy. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this a thing we should be worried about or excited about or be patient about? Because that's what we keep hearing, be patient. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about this levy. One of the things that, at least I asked this yesterday was, okay, is there a good side? Is there anything about this levy that's beneficial to the Nigerian people? Because it's supposed to be in the office of the ONSA. And so just generally, I felt, okay, this is going to help us fight cybercrime. And we see a lot of cybercrimes in the country. Is this one of those funds that will help us fight this situation? And from the feelers we're getting, many people are not very optimistic that this is the way to go. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, thank you for having me. To set the background, let me start by laying the background of the Nigerian economic situation. We have an economy that is in dire straits. The Nigerian, the life of the Nigerian, the citizen, I don't like that word, average Nigerian, the citizen, has been so badly brutalized by bad government policies. This current administration took a crisis that happened in Muhammad Buhari's administration into a catastrophe. The value of the naira has been so depreciated that when you look at all sectors of the economy, the hardship, the desperation, and then you now have policies that are not really clearly thought out. I'll get into the details of this act, of this Cybersecurity Act, that you're asking my thoughts, that I think the government made a mistake. The National Assembly shouldn't have amended this act. They shouldn't have even increased it from the 0.005 it was. They now increased it to half a percentage, 0.5%. I think it's a mistake. The government should just suspend it quietly, suspend its implementation. The National Assembly should withdraw it and go back to the drawing board. I asked this question in rhetorics. How much do Nigerians pay for? How much are they taxing Nigerians for the Calabar, Lagos coastal highways? How much do we pay for defense? Security, soldiers, armies, and stuff like that. Do they tax Nigerians? How much is the education, how much is the tertiary education tax? It is 3% of profit. And then the thing that gets me worried or wild up is that when you look at the act, this section 44, 2, the businesses that are supposed to be taxed to pay this levy, Nigerians are only looking at the 0.5 transaction. Do you know that there's insurance there? Do you know that there is, what do you call it, telecoms, internet service providers? There's stock exchange. They're all going to pay the 0.5%. And then what even gets me really irritated as a Nigerian citizen is the fact that it is unending. If you read the act, of course, they excluded some transactions, like bank-to-bank transactions, pension, educational activities. They excluded some transactions. But you know what? What the act did not say is that it is unending. Kayla, if I give you 5 million naira now, I transfer 5 million naira to you, they will take the 25%, the 0.5%, right? 25,000 naira. And you transfer that same to Chamberlain. You will also pay the 25% because that whole transaction, the bank does not recognize the fact that the originating transaction has paid that amount. So it is unending. So I think it's insulting. I think it is insensitive. I think that it is absolute madness. They should stop running Nigeria. This administration should stop running Nigeria like we are running a drug baron, like a drug institution. They should run it with decorum. They should run it with respect for human dignity, of shared prosperity. We're in a country where we're in an economy that it is biting harsh. Not even talking about the dollar. Forget about the naira-dollar exchange, which even though I think that this APC administration created what I call economic contradiction. Nigeria has the largest economy in Africa, 478 billion US dollars, GDP size, according to the World Bank. Yet, the Nigerian naira is not in the top 10 currencies in Africa. We are in dire straits. There is no need to, you cannot tax a dying economy. I mean, you can think of other ways, genuine ways of raising revenue for government. Have you thought about increasing the production of crude from its 1.5 million barrels a day to maybe 3 million barrels a day? Have you thought about that? This government should stop propaganda. They should stop all this unnecessary shadow dressing. We know that the economy is bad. I said Buhari administration took Nigeria into a crisis. Tinubu has now turned that crisis into a catastrophe.
He keeps telling us that it's going to get better. We just have to be patient.
How?
You're not buying that.
How is it going to get better when every policy after policy is faulty? It's just like, it's a knee-jerk. You don't think through what you're going to do. See, even when it comes to national security, the issue we had with our brothers in Niger, it is diplomacy before war. He was threatening war. Now we're back to diplomacy. And then look at the funny thing. Go and look at World Bank report of last month. Do you know the Nigerian economy grew 8.3%? Even with all the ECOWAS sanctions? That even a military junta is doing better than a democracy? I understand this APC government is shopping for legitimacy, but not on the cost of Nigerian lives. It is too much. Kayla, I think that they should just slow down, think through. Ask yourself, Nigerians, ask this APC administration, where is your economic plan?
I was going to go to the fact that, many people say, look, they met a problem and probably are not reacting as opposed to being proactive. This has happened, let's fix this, let's try this, let's try that. And that in itself comes with a plethora of issues. But let's go back, because you're an economist. I want to go back to what kind of economy are we running in Nigeria? Because growing up, what we heard was this was a mixed economy. Yep. Now, is that working for us? Because what we've seen with many other countries that have gone through dire straits is that they take a hard line and then they focus on it. A mixed economy, like many Nigerians would say, anywhere belle face, let's try this. So if it doesn't work, we try this. So there is a school of thought that is the origin of the problem. Do you share that view?
No, I don't actually. And then I will speak as an economist that is pan-Africanist. I think that where we are right now as a nation, all this theorized or textbook economics would not work. I think that I'm 51 years old, and I've been in this practice for the past 20-something years. And I've realized that there is no clear-cut path. There's no established path to economic growth and progress. That it is a mixture of various things. But what is essential, what is pertinent, is the fact that policies must be thought out, clearly to address specific issues, whether it is in financial institutions, whether it is in agriculture, ICT. Take, for instance, do you know that in Nigeria now, the daily withdrawal limit for in ATM is 20,000? What can 20,000 do for you and your family?
It's supposed to stop you from withdrawing cash. You're supposed to be able to make more transfers.
Do you know how many ATM machines that we have? We are underserved. The infrastructure for electronic banking has not reached the stage where you will now limit all this thing. Okay, the people that even have that infrastructure, like in the UK, the limit is £300. In the US, it's $1,000. What are you doing? It seems like this government is just here to just mistreat Nigerians, strip us of our human dignity. I think it is not fair. You keep taking one bad policy after the other. So to answer your question, it's a cocktail, a potpourri of a lot of things that you just must think it out thoroughly, clearly and smartly and intelligently. There is no time for you to knee-jerk. No. You must plan it. You know, I had so much respect for Yemi Kadaso and Wale Edun, but right now I'm beginning to think differently because of the poor decisions that have been taken. Look at what Cardoso is doing in CBN, sacking people without CBN regulation, without following the civil service regulation. They are sacking retention staff. You follow the civil service. This is not Lagos Boys Club. This is Nigeria. That is a conversation for another day. What I'm saying is that you must have fiscal and monetary policies that complement each other. You cannot be restricting Nigeria. You see, and Kela, as an economist, let me tell you, the problem is on the demand side. It's not on the supply side. You say there's issue with the Nigerian economy. You say federal government will say release 10 million tons of grains in the foreign reserve. They should do this. They have been thinking about importing food. All those are distractionary conversations because the problem is not on the supply side. The problem is that the issue is that there is no food. It's not that there is no food. The issue is that we don't have money to buy the food. That's my 1,000 naira that used to buy me 1,000 naira used to buy me maybe half a kilo of beef. I remember just here before Buhari came in, half a kilo of beef here in Abuja was 800 naira. Do you know how much half a kilo is now? It's 4,500 naira. So, and my income has not increased. So the problem is the devaluation of the naira. So you pay attention to the devaluation of, to fixing the naira, to stopping the drift, and also to ensure that the naira adds in value. All this cosmetic thing about BDCs depleting our foreign reserve, they're all cosmetic. What you see the naira doing, they say the naira is rebounding. They're only just depleting our foreign reserves. It's cosmetic. The naira, the natural value of the naira will still in the parallel market will still go up. So what I'm saying is, they should treat Nigeria with dignity, with humanity. They should stop running like a gangster enterprise. They should have a plan to say this is what we're going to do. Because as an economist, I will tell you, Kayla, you cannot remove pump price of petrol, increase the pump price of petrol, float the naira. What's the other one that they did? At the same time, and not expect the naira to crash. You stagger it. You first, before you even increase the pump price of petrol, the NNPC told us that Nigeria consumes 80 million liters of PMS daily. You know that is false. You know that half of that is going to Cameroon, Chad, Togo, Benin Republic, and all those places. So you clean up that thing first. When you clean up that thing, you don't punish Nigerians for your failure to man our borders. So I think that this administration, I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken.
I mean, I want to bring in my colleague in Lagos, but before we have him in, I was going to ask you, please, where are you buying this meat for 4,500? Because it's 5,005 in my neighborhood. Ayo,
okay. Oh.
Ayo, talk to us.
Interestingly, I don't even know where to begin with Mr. Ijogi, but you know, you are an economist and you've been listening to conversations, and there are those who believe that the issues we are having in our country today didn't start today. Usually, from what I have experienced over the past few months, it depends on who is speaking and from what perspective the person is looking at whatever the issue is. Okay, for instance, when we talk about, you know, the value of the naira, earlier in this year, I'm sure you are aware that the governor of the CBN was given some reasons as to why, explaining that the fact that foreign education expenses amounted to about $28 billion, medical treatment $11 billion, literally, and several other things like that, and those are part of the things that are responsible for the loss of the value of the naira on the one hand. On the other hand, there are those other issues around speculators who are speculating against the naira, which are being clamped down on by the EFCC and several other things like that. Of course, there is no justification for any hard life on Nigerians, but do you see any value in the issues that have been raised previously in the past few months by the CBN governor?
My brother Aya, thank you for that question. I think that we economists, sometimes we delve into, and let me put it out there that the CBN governor is not an economist. He's not an economist. His background is not in economics. Let me put it out there that we economists, sometimes when we talk about the value of a currency, we delve into different theories and hypotheses. But But to keep it simple so that Nigerians can understand what I'm talking about, it is about demand and supply. The value, the essential element to determine the value of a currency comes into demand and supply. That is why when we say fixing the Nigerian currency, we have to look at a whole set of indices and values so as to ensure that the naira doesn't depreciate, but appreciate or even keep it stable over time. Now, my brother, I listened to the CBN governor when he was saying, talking about Nigerians schooling abroad and demanding dollars. That is not a bad thing. But must they get it from the government? It's a simple thing. Reduce the demand on the dollar on the government. Why must government give you dollars to come to take your children to go to school abroad? In this country, in Nigeria, here in Abuja and where you are, or in Lagos, some people pay their children's school fees in dollars. Why? When the constitution of the act establishing the Central Bank of Nigeria expressly says that the only currency that should be the value of exchange in Nigeria is the Nigerian naira, the one issued by the Central Bank of Nigeria. And even besides, I think that if the government must even give dollars to people sending their wards to school abroad, then they should tax them. Then you use the money that you tax them to fund education in Nigeria. It should be incentivized. It's not rocket science. It's just for you to just sit down and think through it. Why? Why should you be sending your child to school abroad and then Nigerians have to suffer for it?
So essentially, well, Mr. Jogi,
so.
that makes a world of sense, what you have just said now. And so looking at what you have said now, in a way, agreeing with the CBN governor, saying, look, we shouldn't be the ones funding the dollar account of many of these people. So how then do you think government can come in at a time when, in the first place, how does the dollar get into the naira, if not into the country, if not through official quarters, when we want to eliminate money laundering and all of that? So in what way, how can government curb that? It is a world where people are at liberty to do whatever they want to do, fundamental human rights and all. We can't force anyone to make sure that their children go to school in Nigeria unless we develop that part. But then how will government be able to do that? I'm not speaking for anyone. I'm just trying for people to understand where all of your argument is coming from. If some of these issues are as a result of the activities of certain individuals, what can government do to ensure that these things that you are complaining about, as many people are complaining about it, will totally end and doesn't happen again?
Well, Ayo, let me expand this conversation a little bit. What I have learned from this administration is that they keep making excuses and keep pointing us to the wrong direction. Remember, before now, they said it was Binance, cryptocurrency. Now they are talking about Nigerian schooling abroad, putting pressure on the dollar and all that. Those are all excuses. Those are all excuses. Do you know that diaspora inflows into Nigeria alone is almost matches the inflows that we get from sale of crude? We're getting these dollars. And all these things, they are not carried in Ghana must go, my dear brother. It is all electronic transfers and LCs and all of that. So you can track it. You can track it. What I'm saying here in essence is that when you are talking about the value of the currency, we should forget about this unnecessary dollarization of the Nigerian economy. We are too much obsessed with the dollars. I think, in all honesty, that when we look at the fundamentals of the economy, and then you ask what are the fundamentals of the economy, you must fix the fundamentals of the economy. I said this to you, that this administration has created an economic contradiction. Nigeria has the largest economy in Africa, GDP size, as in $478 billion US, according to the World Bank. Yet the naira is not in the top 10 currency in Africa. Is that not an economic contradiction? Just get people to demand the naira. Make policies. Why is Dangote refinery importing its crude from abroad? Why is Nigerian NNPC not supplying Dangote with crude sold in naira?
Well, it goes back to the same issues, Mr.
Jogi.
Yeah, it goes back to the same issues that you spoke to as well. For instance, information has it that the depletion of the value of the naira has gone on for very long, almost 100%, if not more, over the, I mean, since 1978, according to some information that is out there. So the issues we are having today didn't start today. I'm sure you will agree with that. Now, what do we do going forward? So that in another 40 years, 30, even 10, 15 years from now, we're not talking about this same thing. This democracy is about 25 years old now, right? Now, 25 years from now, are we still going to be talking about this same thing, Mr. Ijogi? So let's look away from whatever administration. I try to be as blind to any administration as possible because government is a continuum. In another 25 years, what should we be talking about? And what path are we going to take to get there?
Well, thank you for that question. You know, the crisis of the Nigerian naira actually started with the Babangida administration with the implementation of SAP in 1986. That's where the crisis started, the devaluation of the naira. But let's leave that. Let's talk solutions. As an economist and a political economist, or the economist that is in politics, I will tell you this, that we must first start by fixing our country. When I mean fixing our country, we must get to a place where we elevate citizenship. Let there be a value for citizenship. Let me have interest in Nigeria. Let Nigeria be a country where I want to die for. Not that I want to jackpot. No, let Nigeria be a place where I want to die for. I want to contribute in building because Nigeria has something to offer for me. First, when we get past that, we now look at the fundamentals of the economy. After you elevate citizenship, you now look at the fundamentals of the Nigerian economy. And then whatever government that is in place will tell Nigerians the basic truth. The time for showboating, half-truth, propaganda, and lies is over. We need to bring down the curtains to say Nigeria has been mismanaged over the last 3 decades. It is now time for us to fix Nigeria. We have to roll up our sleeves and take sector by sector. We have to start, for me, food production and agriculture. This is not big grammar and all that. Let us first know how to feed ourselves. When we start food production and agriculture, we have about 38 million hectares of arable land that is not farmed. No. We need to feed ourselves first. When we start with agriculture, when we start feeding ourselves, then we now say we now have to add value to our agriculture. This madness about oil production, about oil, which the economists call the Dutch disease, we must move away from it and learn that Nigeria can only be fixed by Nigerians. And then we ensure that we hold our political class accountable. Because I can tell you for free, my brother, that the political class, especially in this administration, they have traded us to the Brentwood institutions to buy legitimacy. Don't sacrifice Nigerians to these imperialists. No. We must manage our affairs by ourselves. Nigeria must first start to add value to its agriculture. After that, we now move into manufacturing. Don't come and start with all this big grammar of manufacturing. No, let's feed ourselves first, add value to our agri products, then we move to manufacturing. Then we now look at things like the value of the naira. What are the indices to strengthen the values of the naira, which is exports, which is getting the demand for the naira. That means our foreign policy must be right. What are we doing with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? In the ECOWAS sub-region, how come people are not demanding the naira? How can we fix that? It is not a silver bullet. That's why we say you must get good people in government, people who understand how to run Nigeria. It is not there's no one size fits all. You have to intervene in a lot of sectors of the Nigerian economy.
Agree. Understandably. Now, you began by saying that the most important, almost like saying that the low-hanging fruit for us as a nation is agriculture. We know that agriculture is not something that we can depend just on the federal government. The federal government, as far as I'm concerned, will be no more than a facilitator. Consequently, you look at projects initiated by the Africa Development Bank, such as the special agro-industrial processing zones, and you know that these zones, these initiatives, these agricultural interventions are in the states. Bringing that issue, all-important issue of collaboration of the states into the fray, how would you assess how the states, the different states, since 1999 have fared in developing Nigeria? You are speaking to the political class, and that sounds quite good. So let's talk to that sector, that subnational authority over the past 25 years. What would be your assessment, particularly in getting them to do right by Nigerians in the area of agriculture? Every government has spoken about it, but at the federal level, but the states, I don't know. What is your assessment of how the states have fared in that regard?
Well, I'll be very, very honest with you, my dear brother. Thank you for that question. You see, that question now goes back to the issue of restructuring. That the structure of the Nigerian state does not allow the subnationals to contribute to national development. People are looking at it from only the political angle. No, I'm looking at it from the economic angle. We need to restructure the Nigeria. What is the federal government doing with driver's license and plate numbers? Collecting levies on driver's license and plate numbers. What's that? I said we need to restructure, devolve more powers to the state. And we need to make the local governments independent so that these states can actually take decisions that will affect their states. Like the states right now cannot even mine or mine anything that is under the ground in their states. It's controlled by the federal government. It's just now that the states can now even produce electricity. Before now, it was by the federal government. So that is on one hand. But on the other hand, with regards to agriculture, I have always advocated for a G2G partnerships because of the way our federal structure is. A government-to-government partnerships. That federal government must partner with state government to achieve specific designed objective, and federal government must partner with local governments. For me, when it comes to agriculture, I think the G2G partnership we should be with local governments. We should have federal government pouring in finances in specific local governments. We are talking about creating export processing zones in the 6 geopolitical zones. That is fine, but where are the products? Then
well, just a second, Mr. Ijogi, my apologies, just a second.
Are the products organic? What is our comparative advantage?
Just 1 second, Mr. Ijogi, if you can hear me.
I think that there's a lot of things to be done.
Yeah, yes. I agree with you. Just 1 second. When you say that the federal government should devolve certain things to the local government, isn't that a breach of the federation? Because, I mean, one would have expected that the collaboration should be the states and their local governments, which have constitutional responsibilities that are not being, spoken to. How does that play? I know that, we're supposed to be talking about the 0.5 cybersecurity levy, but, all of these things, because if one state is talking to another state, you're going to have to make some transfers, which will affect prices. So that conversation, I don't know if, how you intend to, how you think that will work? Federal government speaking directly to the local governments.
Based on the political history, political literature of the past, most of these state governors are irresponsible. We have not been able to free the local governments from the grip of the states. So I think that the federal government, who is the big brother, should do the needful and pass certain policies, certain executive orders that will allow them to deal with the states. Look at Niger State, for instance. Governor Bago of Niger State is doing excellently well because he understands that we have gone past the part where you say you stimulate the economy. You now have to intervene. Governor Bago is intervening in agriculture in Niger State. He has provided tractors. He has cleared over 1 million hectares of land. He's going to provide seedlings. He has organized farmers into cooperatives and societies, small groups. He's going to give them seedlings and fertilizer. Look, that is how to grow an economy. It's not the time for people to sit down in offices where you have HCs and making policies. No, you have to roll up your sleeves and get down to the brass tacks. This is not the time to stimulate. No, it is time to intervene because Nigeria is in dire straits.
I mean, that intervention is one that a lot of people have been calling for, listening to almost everybody talking about this cybersecurity levy. But I want to be able to give you a perspective from Nasima. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they're actually looking at the cybersecurity infrastructure of the country. Yes, the levy is much, there's an outcry about it, but is there an actual issue with our cybersecurity infrastructure that should be handled? Let me just give you what the President of Nasima said on this matter. His name is Dele Oye. He says, while Nasima recognizes the importance of bolstering our national cybersecurity infrastructure, the blanket imposition of this levy without a limit raises significant issues that warrant a thorough review and reconsideration by the authorities. Then he now goes on, and this is the part where I want you to come in. He said, firstly, the security and defense sectors are already substantial recipients of the national budget. They are responsible for tackling a hybrid of security challenges like terrorism, banditry, and other internal conflicts in Nigeria. However, cybersecurity is firstly a transnational issue which requires cooperation between international security agencies and requires highly skilled and experienced human resources. For this reason, we believe the burden should be shared across the current security and defense budgets. What do you make of that assertion?
But
He's basically saying, don't levy Nigerians. You have the bulk of the budget. Take from there and do cybersecurity.
But that's how I started my program today. I said, how much do we pay for defense? I even added the Lagos-Calabar coastal line. We wouldn't have a budget that we get from different revenue streams. So why do you need to tax Nigerians for this particular item? I said so. I said it is too extortionist. I think it is done in bad faith. It should be suspended. The National Assembly should withdraw that act, and then they should rethink it. It is unfair to Nigeria.
What's the worst case scenario? What if they don't? What if all of these calls and complaints? You know, we're talking about cybersecurity here. We're looking at our national security.
No, we
cannot negotiate.
We engage them into a conversation. It's a simple thing. We engage them into a conversation. That is simple. What is it that you are looking at? What is your objective? To protect Nigerians from cyber attacks, from stuff like that, from hackers and stuff like that, to attack critical digital infrastructure. Maybe that is the objective. Yeah. Must Nigerians pay for it with 0.5% of transfers? No, I don't think so. I strongly object to it. And then you now domicile it in the office of the National Security Advisor's office? No, please. Something that the National Assembly cannot vet, they cannot budget, they cannot probe? No, please. No. And we must resist it. We are going to resist it. It's our country. Who is the government?
Resist it?
It's a simple thing. We have a conversation with them. And we hope that they will see reasons. I mean, TUC is already objecting it. Labour will soon come up. The different political parties are speaking up. It is unfair to Nigerians. Honestly, it's unfair. It is inhuman. It is too much. Even if they had left it at that 0.005%, that one is even too much. So I think that they should have a rethink. This is not the time to stir up murky waters, especially as Nigerians are hungry, desolate, and in desperation. This is the time that they just need to bring a democracy that cares about the feelings of the people. The democracy that has shared prosperity in its core. A democracy that the policies, yet it is biting now, but we can see where we are going to. This is not the time for harsh policies that you didn't think through. Like I was telling you, that it is an infinite deduction of transaction. There's no limit. So it is fraudulent. It is fraudulent. We can challenge them in court. There's so many things that we can do. This policy is not going to stand. Trust me.
I mean, a lot of people share your views right now. Could you talk to them? Talk to the government about what solutions there are. I saw you talking about a few of those solutions with Ayo earlier. Are there actually... So let's assume that they're trying to do something right? But it's something that is going to be very burdensome on the Nigerian people, and of course, hence the kickback. What should they be doing differently right now? If they really do want to fight this cybersecurity problem, or we're trying to, how can they do it without putting this burden on the Nigerian people?
So we'll now go back to revenues. Yes, dwindling revenues. Of course, I understand that. The government must now start to think of ways of increasing revenues that are accruing to government, not transferring the burden to the already tired and weak Nigerians that have been starved, that have been deprived, that have been oppressed. No. Like I said, in the last 10 years, we have never met our 2 million barrels per day quota. Why don't we increase it to 3 million barrels? Don't we give us extra income?
Are there immediate? Because this solution you just gave is long term.
No, it's not.
Is it immediate? Is it something that we can
immediate.
get?
Increase it to 3, 1. Number 2, this in the oil sector, there's something that's called non-OPEC quota, which is how they steal Nigerian crude. Clean up that whole process, and you still get more revenues to government. There are different ways to do it. You said they take Nigerian crude across Nigerian PMS across the border, seal up the whole places. Clean up the process, remove corruption, inefficiencies from the process, and you will save money that you can invest in cybersecurity. Not taxing the Nigerian people. There's so much to be done. They're just being disingenuous about it. There's so much to be done. I think that any administration that cares for the Nigerian citizen, at this particular moment, will be sensitive to the fact that the Nigerian life has been so devalued that what you should be thinking of is how to increase its value. You know, even this minimum wage that they are talking about it won't even be enough. Because if you don't pay critical attention to the value of the country, of the currency, the purchasing power will keep reducing. You can increase minimum wage to 200,000 and 250,000 naira if you do not fix the value of the naira. That is why I spoke earlier on about fiscal policy and monetary policy that must be complementing each other. It's not taxing the Nigerian people. No, you must increase production. How do you do it? You must create ingenious way, like I was telling you, G2G partnerships, government-to-government partnerships, that this is not the time for you to start saying you stimulate by making policies. No, government has to intervene. And I gave an example like what Governor Bago is doing in Niger State. He's an APC person. But this is not the time for political party. This is time for the Nigerian. And I think that the federal government is being insensitive, especially with this new act, the Cybersecurity Act. I think it's being just insensitive and taking Nigerians for a ride. That is why we're going to resist it. We're going to take them to court. We're going to engage them. If they refuse, we're going to challenge it in court because we're Democrats. And lastly, when we talk about cybersecurity, let this not be missed, that it is essential for the government to preserve and protect its cybersecurity. Even if you look at the act, they say it's cybersecurity prohibition and prevention. How can you prohibit? It's even wrongly named. How can you prohibit cybersecurity? Somebody is trying to hack into your this, you say you want to prohibit. How? It's cybersecurity defense act. It's not prohibition. No, come on. That's a conversation for another day. But when you look at that act, it is important for us to have the act. I read the act, the ones in the US. In the US, it's also domiciled under the National Security Advisor Office, yes. But its funding is not from the taxation of the American citizens. We must build the infrastructure, yes, because the world is going into a digital platform. But you cannot say a 0.5, half a percentage of all transfers, and that is on the banking sector. You now have that one in stock market, you have the one in insurance, you have the one in internet service provider. So if I buy data, Kayla, if I buy data, I will pay 0.5% to NSA's office, and at the same time, you are encouraging us to migrate to the digital economy, to a cashless society, and at the same time, you are saying that I cannot withdraw more than 20,000 naira. And we don't have the infrastructure. You can see when you want to do transfers sometimes on your app, the network is down. When you go to the ATM, it's not paying. Look, please. And then you compare that to like I said, you compare that to the UK, which they have all that infrastructure. It's £300 per day. Well, cash withdrawals. In the US, $1,000. Well,
we do have to wrap it up there. And I know you're very pained, as are many Nigerians right now. But I want to thank you so much, Mr. Dakole, for being with us on Sunrise Daily, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.